Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Tomorrow marks the 25th anniversary of Everclear's smash 1997 album, So Much for the Afterglow, which featured hits like Everything to Everyone, I Will Buy You a New Life, and Father of Mine. I spoke to frontman Art Alexakis in 2020 when he performed at City Winery in Washington, D.C.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
Now, before we dive into the show, I want to fill our listeners in on a thing that you're dealing with right now. Your airline just smashed up your guitar?
well, thanks for laughing for the $6,000 guitar. Thanks, dude. Actually, one of my guitars, but it's the main one. It's the 6-string. I got a 12-string too. But yeah, it looks like a forklift. You know, one of the two forklift things. It looks like one of those went through the case and went through the guitar. So, that's fun. So I'm dealing with that. I got to figure out. I'll probably buy another guitar or get a loaner or something. We're trying to figure that out right now.
Now, was that the exact one you were planning to use at the DC show?
Yeah, man, I'm on tour. I'm playing North Carolina tonight. I got New Jersey tomorrow, and then Philly DC the next day. So yeah, that was going to be one of the guitars I was playing.
Well, hopefully you get that sorted out before the show. That's a pain in the butt, man. But hopefully they can reimburse you.
Well, let's hope so. Don't hold your breath. But you told me to just play air guitar, so maybe I'll do that.
Well, either way, we'll get to hear that awesome voice. All right, well, enough about the airline mishap. What are you doing with this solo show? What can we expect to hear? Do you play any of the Everclear stuff, or is it all like your new solo stuff?
It's all Everclear stuff. I play about 4 songs off the new record. I've been writing and singing Everclear for 25 years, so that's been the majority of my singer-songwriting over my career. I did just put out a solo record, Sun Songs, which came out in October, and I'll be playing a few songs off that as well.
All right, cool. And what do you like about doing these little, more intimate solo acoustic gigs as opposed to, rocking bigger venues with the band? Is it just the intimacy thing you like?
Intimacy. We're still rocking the bigger venues with Everclear. We're going out to celebrate our 20th anniversary of our 4th album, Songs from American Movie. That was our 4th platinum record in a row, and we'll be doing hits off that all next year. So this is a nice juxtaposition of playing to smaller crowds and more intimate, like you said, and it's just fun. It's a different thing.
Awesome. Well, remind our listeners how it all got started. Before you even joined the band, like when you were young, how'd you get bit by the music bug?
Well, I grew up with the Beatles. I'm older, man. I saw the Beatles on TV when I was 4. It's not the first time they played the Ed Sullivan Show, but the last time in '66. And I remember coming out of my room and sneaking around the couch and watching it, when I was supposed to be in bed. And from that moment on, I never wanted to do anything else. And, I grew up as the youngest of 5 kids, so I was heavily influenced by the music around me, and I listened to everything. And, I went through hard rock and Motown and soul and then punk rock and hip hop and alternative. I mean, some big bands for me, the Beatles, the Stones, Zeppelin, and then Sex Pistols, Ramones, X, LA punk band, big band for me. And then, of course, a lot of the more alternative bands from early Soul Asylum and the Replacements and Husker Du and REM, and then, the Pixies and Sonic Youth and Public Enemy and just all sorts of different music. I love it all. If it's lyrical and it's powerful and it has a hook to it, I like it. So that's kind of what started Everclear. And I started Everclear with the idea. I was looking for people that's what I wanted to be, was a singer-songwriter with a hard rock / punk rock band.
And remind me how you guys got together, because you had moved to, where was it again? Was it Portland? Portland,
Oregon. Yeah, I put an ad in the paper and found some guys. Didn't work out very well. I found some other guys, and then I went back to those guys, and then just slowly over the last 25 years, replace people as it goes. It's my thing. It was never a band like, hey, let's start a band. It's always been my band.
Right. And when you guys, I remember it's. God, I was I was probably in like middle school, so you guys were like the soundtrack of that whole coming of age period for a lot of my life, and a lot of people in my circle. But I know a lot of your songs were pulling from some pretty heavy stuff that you had endured growing up. Heroin Girl, Father of Mine, stuff like that. How were you able to pull from some of stuff that's really, really hard stuff that people go through in everyday life and turn it into music that people can relate to and see a light through?
Well, let's put it in perspective. I'd say about a quarter to a third of my songs are autobiographical, but since I like to write from the first person because I like storytellers, that's what I like to listen to. I like people telling stories and losing yourself in a story, whether it's autobiographical or not. There's got to be truth to everything you write. So I'd say about a third are autobiographical, about a third are like I'll take from different parts of my life or things I read about or hear about, and I'll create characters. And then some are I just create just write a story, just make it up. And it depends on which song you listen to. Santa Monica, not autobiographical. The only thing autobiographical about it is I grew up in Santa Monica, California. That's the only thing. And it's next to the ocean. Father of Mine, totally about my dad. Wonderful, kind of a blend of like songs from, like some from my life, some from my daughters, some from my friends, some from one of the guys in the band, some from my ex-wife, just images that I took and put together in this one character of writing a song from a kid's perspective of the parents breaking up. So I write different ways, and sometimes it's hard, but I like hard. I like the challenge. I think that's what makes us a little bit different from the next band is that we write story songs. It's not in the 90s. A lot of people were really into just imagery and writing lyrics that were very caustic and cryptic. And we've got some. I've got some lyrics like that, but most of the time, even if it's cryptic and caustic, I want it to tell a story from one perspective or another.
Awesome. I want to do a deeper dive into a couple of those you mentioned. And we're radio, so if you can paint me a visual picture, but when you sit down to write, I Will Buy You a New Life, for instance, do you remember where you were, what inspired that to come out your pen? Yeah,
it's funny. I was it was after Sparkle and Fade, and that the success we were already recording the next record, which was going to become So Much for the Afterglow, but it wasn't called that at the time. I'd already recorded the majority of songs, and then I was writing more songs, and it was around Christmas time, and setting up all the lights and stuff, and I remember being in my office, and at my house, it was just a bedroom. We just bought a big house up in the West Hills, and I had a desk in there and also a couch where I would sit and write, and late at night where I wouldn't bug anybody. And I remember writing these lyrics down and just talking about it, and then I started playing the song, and then next thing I know, my wife, who was kind of my wife at the time, my second wife, was sitting there crying, listening to or not really crying, but just really emotional listening to it. And it's funny, even though I wrote that song for that relationship, and I've been married twice since then. I've been married to my wife now. We've been together 16 years, and it's better.
Congrats.
Thanks, brother. And we got a 12-year-old daughter. And it's weird. It's like that song for me, and I think for a lot of other people that I talk to, fans who like my music, are they, even though their lives have changed, that song still has meaning, but maybe in a different kind of way. Like I say a lot of times, I wrote that for one lifetime. It was like it was a different life, and now it has different meanings for my current life, but it's still relevant.
Now, how about Everything to Everyone? What was going through your head at that point in your life for that song to come out of you?
That was well, the music wise, I remember listening. I remember being in Macy's. We were in New York. We were for the MTV Awards, and I went shopping at Macy's the day before to get some clothes. We'd just come back from Europe, and I met my wife and my daughter at the time there. This is in '96, I think, right? And I remember hearing drums and bass music in the music, way in the background. And I remember just kind of finding a speaker that I could listen to it a little bit closer, because I really dug the groove of it. And then at the same time, I was getting calls on my cell phone from the president of Capitol, who was like really trying to like push me into doing these shows for friends of his for like no money. And I just like, I felt like this guy was a manipulator. I'm friends with the guy now, and we've got a good relationship now. But at the time, I just felt like he was the man. And lyrically, I just that's where it came from. It's just those people in the industry and those people in your life that they don't have any real personality of their own. They're whoever they think you want them to be to get what they need from you. And musically, I just came up with the riff, and I wrote a bunch of notes about the beats, how I wanted the beats, because I wanted this record to sound different than Sparkle and Fade, which was a lot more straight ahead. And I just, when we got in the studio, I started working a lot with my drummer, and he would come up with beats, and I would come up with beats that he would try to recreate, that I'd bang on a table, and we worked it out. And it was one of the first rock records to have Pro Tools beats on it. We'd just gotten Pro Tools a year, 6 months earlier, and instead of making it sound mechanical, I wanted it to sound hypnotic. So that was the idea behind that.
Awesome. And then, of course, Father of Mine, my listeners will, beat me up if I don't go and get an in-depth thing on that one. But that must have been a really, really personal thing to write. But how was it? Was it sort of cathartic?
Oh, of course it's cathartic. It still is. It's funny is like, I don't know if you have kids, but something people with children do a lot of times is they'll just go watch their kids sleep. I know it sounds weird, but it's like you watch them sleep and you see their face at 100% at peace, right? And it's just a wonderful thing. And I remember watching my eldest daughter sleep when she was supposed to have been about 6 or 7, and then this emotion just came on me. And as we left the room, I said to my wife at the time, how does a man walk away from that? How do you walk away from your child? I understand. My mom had always told me, people change, adults change, and relationships don't always work out. But a real man moves down the street and raises his children, helps raise his children. And I've always believed that. I still believe that to this day. And I remember going into my office, shutting the door, and just writing these words, and these some story. I'll do that sometimes. I'll just write paragraphs, and then I'll go through and find themes and create lines out of it, and then move them around and create verses, and then I'll see what's not there, and it'll be, I'll know what to write. That's one process. I use different types of processes when I write, because you don't want to get locked into every song sounding the same, either lyrically or musically. So I try to constantly find new ways to build the process.
Gotcha. And then maybe time for one more. Wonderful. When you write that.
Yeah, I had been a child of divorce, and I grew up in a housing project where just about everybody was a child of divorce. So I had seen a lot of domestic issues growing up. And one of the things I grew up, I didn't want to have kids because I didn't want them to go through the hell that I gone through. But when I had a child, and watching her go through a divorce between me and her mom was one of the most excruciating things I'd ever seen before. And at the same time, I had a friend who was going through a divorce with his ex-wife, and he had 2 kids, and I had a friend who was a female who was going through the same thing, and custody and all that crap. And I just started writing things that that I had felt, and that I had heard them say, and that I had heard other people say in books. Being a child of divorce and watching my daughter go through it. So that's kind of an amalgam of different things where I create one character from those different experiences.
Gotcha. All right. Well, you've definitely been more than generous with your time, and I know you got to sort out a guitar thing, figure that out.
Yeah.
So we'll let you run, but just sort of in closing, why should our listeners come on out to your show on the 10th? Give them a final pitch here.
I don't pitch, dude.
We'll leave it there.
Check it out. If you don't know my music and you don't want to come see it, don't come see it. But if you like 90s rock and you like the songs and you like Everclear music, you're gonna have a great time. I put on the best show I can. It's personal. It goes back and forth. It's reciprocal between me and the audience, and I always come out after the show and meet with people, and there's a part of the show where I take requests and questions and stuff. So it's very interactive. So if you're looking for a night of good songs and fun, come on out.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Everybody, again, it's City Winery DC down on Oakey Street Northeast. So thanks so much, Art, for joining us. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.